Hello and welcome to Module 4, your last and final module, here with your instructor again. And in this module, we're going to go over sports psychology, your coaching values, and your road to becoming a head coach, which is maybe your final goal. Maybe you want to say an assistant head coach, an assistant coach, that's also fine. But if your final goal is becoming a college golf head coach, and watch till the end. So what you're going to learn in this module is we're going to go over basic sports psychology principles that will be really useful to know as a coach, and really useful to implement if you want to bring the best out of your players and bring your team the furthest possible. You're going to define your personal coaching values and standards. Think about what you want to stand for, what you want to achieve, and what you want your players to live by. You're going to develop a short philosophy statement. And as I said before, we're going to look at some steps for progressing towards a head coaching role. So, sports psychology. This is super important because at this level, at the college level, especially if you're going to coach D1, everybody's really good. Everybody can play golf. Everybody can score. They all have usually really good techniques. They all have the necessary tools to play really well. But what usually makes a difference is what's going on up here. And if you can effectively um, access your skills and what you know you can produce under pressure, or when it matters, or in tournaments, or when the stakes are highest, when it matters most, that's where sports psychology comes in, and that's usually what separates um, great teams from good teams to mediocre teams, and so on. So if you are at a school, if you're going to start out at a school, if you're lucky enough that has a really high budget, I would strongly recommend hiring a mental coach, a performance coach, and working closely with that coach to discuss what some of their approaches are, what they would bring, and what they would teach the team. So that's a really useful way to enhance performance, and to, I would say, one of the best ways to spend your budget is hiring a mental or performance coach. If the budget doesn't allow this, I would highly recommend getting basic knowledge in sports psychology through books, podcasts, just acquiring as much information as you can. But we're going to go over some really important tools here. Brings us to my second point here: tools, um, which can help you a lot if you bring that as a mental coach. If you bring um, those skills to the table, discuss it with your head coach, discuss how you want to implement those. And those will also help you a ton further down the road when you want to become a head coach. And um, yeah, it's what makes the difference if you can implement some of these tools. So big ones in golf especially are things like breathing techniques, mindfulness, implementing mindfulness, some sort of mindfulness is really, really big. Implementing it in your pre-shot routine, preaching it in practice, ground yourself with the breath, um, implement some sort of mindfulness, whatever that is, quiet eye, imagery, visualization, visualizing the shot, visualizing the putt, whatever it is. Implementing those tools in practice, you as a coach preach it over and over again how important tools like that are, because usually those are the tools, or those are the things that tend to slip away or are forgotten about first. Usually players think about their swing, their technique, their stroke, whatever it is. That's usually what players focus on the most. But again, this stuff is so important, and it needs to be reminded and preached over and over again. So if you can implement, you can also put aside time and practice in team practice. Hey, we're going to go over breathing techniques. We're going to go over how we can implement mindfulness into our pre-shot routine. We can go over visualization, implement that. Again, that is so important. And again, acquiring additional information to what I'm saying here is super useful. The more you know, the better, and the more you can advise your players and implement that in practice. Which brings me to my last point: is effective training. By hiring a mental coach or performance coach, they will most likely go over how to most effectively practice. Um, but again, as a coach, remind players, if you have a team meeting before practice, set the intention how we're going to practice that day. Set the intention on what we're going to focus on, how intentional we're going to be with the breath, how intentional we're going to be with our pre-shot routine. Set that intention and make sure the training, the time you put in, is most effective. Next is your coaching values and standards. This, as a coach, is one of the most important things, is setting a standard for yourself, how you want to show up every day, what do you want to stand for, what do you want your players to stand for, what do you want, how do you want them to represent the program you're coaching at, what are your values, what's important to you, what do you look for in players. Do you want players that, for example, are big on accountability? Do you want the hardest working players? Do you want, that's very individual, that you have to define it for yourself. Do you want a team that gets fiery, that gets angry, that has a lot of emotion? Or do you want a team that's more stoic, that's calm, doesn't show a lot of emotion? Again, what are your values? What do you look for? How do you recruit? All that's going to come down to your values and what's important to you. Set those values. Again, it's very individual to yourself. What's important to you could be integrity, could be work ethic, could be just great team players. It is individual to you, but it's important that you set those values so you know what you want to look for, you know what you want to stand for, which again brings me to standards. What do you want to preach every day? Do you want to preach an elite mindset? Do you want to preach that we're not going to make excuses on this team, that we're going to have accountability, that we're going to have ownership, um, that we're going to be the hardest working team, that we're going to show up with intention, great energy, and a readiness to get better every day? What are your standards? Set them, write them down, discuss it, first of all, with yourself, think about it yourself, but then discuss it with your head coach. And a lot of that stuff, again, when you start out as a assistant coach, is going to come from your head coach. But if you can bring what I'm saying here to the table, to your head coach, if you can discuss it with him, it's going to show so many good traits in yourself, and it's going to be really valuable. So write it down, find a way to preach it every day. If that is by you saying it in the team meeting every morning, going over your standards, what you want to stand for, your values, or if that is with posters that are all over the walls in your facility, in your locker room, you can write them down, have the players sign it, tap it every time they go out of the facility, out of the locker room, whatever it is. Set it for yourself and find a way to remind players every day, that so that they actually live up to the standard every day, and that they live by your values and what's important to you and to the team, so that they do it every day. Lastly, transitioning to head coach. Again, that is an individual. You might want to stay an assistant head coach. But most likely you want to be a head coach so that you can lead your own team, that you can be more successful, earn more money, etc. This whole course is essentially preparing you to be an assistant coach, but then essentially preparing you to be a head coach eventually. You will have to show great leadership. You will have to be a great communicator. You will have to be very effective with your time, with your training, how you implement what's important to you into that training, how you coach players, how you recruit players. You have to be very effective with that. Again, you have to be a great leader. You have to make sure you live up to your own standards every day. You lead by example. You are a figure that is respected, that can communicate properly, that can resolve conflict in the most effective way. You have to make sure you are a person, not just a coach, a person that players can come to, um, and share their feelings, their thoughts. Same goes for the head coach, that you have to make sure that your head coach or whoever you work with can come to you and work in the most effective way with you. All that's going to help you tremendously with eventually becoming a head coach. If you apply everything that we went over in this course, you're already going to bring a lot of valuable skills, things, information to the table from the get-go. And you're only going to get better at that once you start working, once you start interacting with coaches, your head coach, players, other athletic staff. It's only going to get better. You're going to learn more. This is only a guide to guide you in the right direction, but it is really valuable information. And as I said at the beginning, podcasts, books, articles, acquire as much information as you can. Take notes in this course, in this module. Obviously, go through the assignments, and you're going to be really, really well prepared to start out as a assistant coach, and you're going to be on the most effective way to eventually transition to a head coach.